Hi there guys, welcome to Bizzleberry's 8.9 League of Legends support tier list guide. If you're new to the YouTube channel, then I am a support main Twitch streamer who streams every evening at twitch.tv/Bizzleberry, and I'm a Diamond 2 Master League player, and yeah, let's get this right underway. So I've made a new tier on to S+, above the S, because there are a few support champions that are being brought up this patch, specifically champions that have received mana regen buffs, and Lux has actually creeped up quite a bit. We'll go into more detail on her shortly, but she is definitely one that I've been surprised about this patch, so I can't wait to talk about her. There's a few champions that have dropped off the list from the 8.8 tier guide video, and once again I'll go into that further on. But let's start off with the S+. And then we've got Morgana, Brand, Zyra, and Jana. This patch, Morgana's been given a base mana increase, so that will allow you to spam W in lane a lot more. The first recall, all the laning phase up to your first recall, you should see some more quality of life in able to use a couple more spells before you go and start having some mana issues. So that's really nice. I kind of hope they do that with a few more support champions, but like maybe with the Nami and a couple of other champions that spam a lot of spells in lane and struggle an awful lot. But Morgana was one of those champions. Also, so was Brand and Zyra. They also received laning phase mana buffs. Now, the Morgana received no changes on her base mana level 1, just pure flat mana regen buff. The Brand and the Zyra may experience slightly more mana issues later throughout the game, especially with the traditional support builds with Oblivion Orb, Liandry's, Rylai's. There's no extra mana being picked up there from something like Luden's Echo. So that's something to bear in mind when you're in the later stages of the game. You might struggle a little bit with mana issues, so you won't be out poking as much as you may possibly be already, but most of your mana, you should have mana, your mana issues should be fine for team fights. Jana is still the best peel support in the entire game right now, and her laning, when you just put a few points in her W, the damage is quite ridiculous still. So W auto attack, then quickly do run away. 9 times out of 10 the enemy can't reply to that damage, and then you can do that again a few seconds later. So her solo Q laning phase is incredibly strong, and then once you feel like you've had enough points in W, usually 2 or 3 is enough, then you can obviously start working on shield and Ardent Censer. And AD carries are still in a very good situation. In the future there is going to be a patch that will be an AD overhaul, but that's something to worry about next patch. So in the S tier, these champions are still very good in solo queue. Overall, the broad spectrum of supports, they aren't too far off. These are just like little advantages that they have above the other supports that are lower down. But generally, I'd say the supports are quite balanced compared to some of the other lanes. A lot of these supports see a lot of play in solo queue. There isn't usually, apart from maybe Jana and maybe Morgana, you see more varied champions being played in the support role. So we've got Nami. I used to have in my S+ in the previous video. Now that tier's been nerfed, tier S isn't a viable option at all in my opinion on any support right now. The extra 100 gold cost plus the mana nerfs with that, and Nami hasn't received any mana compensation for that. I really like going tier on Nami when you're expecting to have those really long drawn out mid-game team fights. Tends to happen a little bit more in the high ELO, like with like 2-minute drawn out mid-game, like sieges and things like that. And without tier, Nami falls off. But if you haven't got if you're not against a team that will cause that situation, and that your fights and you're pretty confident that fights will end within about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. She shouldn't have too many mana issues. You might have to stop spam healing before fights to top people off, because you will want to have those spells obviously ready for team fights, but she's still in a really good place right now. Alistar, you've got Blitzcrank, Thresh, Rakan, Lulu, and Lux. Now, every single champion on that S tier list is the same apart from Lux and the Nami that I've just covered. The tank supports right now are still weaker than the caster supports in my opinion, that are particularly listed in the S+. However, the hard engaged supports can beat the squishier supports such as the Nami, the Jana, the brand. But against the Zyra and the Morgana, you'll have some issues. Spell Shield blocks Blitzcrank engage, for example, and stops Rakan from being able to engage in one person. And if the shield has at least 2 points in laning phase, Morgana can block the Alistar engage as well. So Morgana is the safest support pick right now against the hard engaged supports. But if you're against anyone else, if you want to play a tank and you're against any other squishy support, you should be fine picking up those ones listed in the S tier. There's a lot of setup potential as well with the Alistar multi-combo, Rakan multi-combo, Thresh multi-combo, working with your jungler. And Blitzcrank hasn't exactly got a multi-combo, but if you manage to take a key target from their team though in a mid-game or mid to late game team fight and delete them straight away, then there is that avenue of being able to just snowball throughout the game, but it does rely on you being able to land your hooks. Now Lulu is on S and not S+ or lower. She is there as long as you're playing with the correct AD, and by correct I mean hypercarry, so Kaiser, Vayne, Kog'Maw, those type of champions. She excels in, she does insane scaling with those AD carries. Lulu works not as well with champions such as Jhin and Misfortune. She can provide them really nice extra tankiness when being ganked by assassins. However, when you buff them with your E, your shield, they won't get as much benefit from Lulu's passive, so the damage falls off a little bit there compared to something like a Kog'Maw with massive amounts of attack speed with the Ardent Sensor, etc. The Lux is on their S. She had massive changes this patch to the point where it was becoming a little bit of a meme in my Twitch chat a few days ago about me playing Lux, and I played Lux at Diamond 3 on request. We won the game. There were a few things that were bothering me, but now these changes fix most of these issues. Her main downside is that she is incredibly squishy, fairly similar to Brand. She has no hard CC. Now that's something to bear in mind. So if you do get caught by an assassin, you're relying on that binding hit, and even then that may not save you because it's not a hard CC. They can still use abilities while they are rooted, of course. The changes to Lux will probably change how you would level up your abilities in lane now. Q is a lot better at rank 1, but I wouldn't go so far as to say you should be ranking that up in lane. The damage scaling isn't great per level, and the cooldown's still the same, so it isn't worth leveling the Q. I would say leave it level 1 for as long as possible, just purely because now it doesn't give you any cooldown. The mana cost is still lower at the lower ranks, just by 5 per level, but it's something. But the base damage scaling on it, it's nothing crazy. So I wouldn't encourage people to level your Q. You'd be more interested in leveling up your E a tiny bit in lane and then your W. So I would level her the same as you would kind of do with Jana. You kind of treat the E as lane poke, and also for the extra slow duration, and to help set up for your bindings. So I would say maybe level up to 3 points by level 5 in E. That should be enough harassment during the laning phase. And as you're progressing into mid game, starting getting into those bigger team fights where your shield will have more value because you'll be potentially shielding 5 people multiple times throughout team fights, and the shield buff on it, so that the double value on the shield now on the way back path thing on the way back is very, very, I think it's probably a bit too much. So I'd say play Lux support as much as you can until it maybe gets changed. Right now it's looking extremely strong, so I would say get your W maxed after you've got 3 points in E, then finish off your E, and then start putting points in your Q, because you have no other option obviously apart from your ultimate. And that should make it viable enough so that you have enough poking lane, you have enough setup for the entire game, and that your shields are going to be crazy good. Especially take into consideration the fact that if you pick up Ardent Sensor on Lux and you're constantly shielding multiple people, especially on objectives right now, on towers, on dragons, on barons, giving everyone attack speed, it's going to make things a lot quicker. And considering that the Baron max HP has been changed so that Baron does Baron does less damage and the damage is more spread out, but Baron's HP has increased. So those longer drawn out Baron fights to do Baron, that gives the Lux shield more worth as well. So that's it's a very exciting time if you are a fan of Lux support, and I'd definitely be playing it a lot more in solo queue. I do occasionally play it like every now and then, but I'm very excited. If you've got experience on Morgana, then landing those bindings should be no problem, and you could do those cheesy things where you throw out a Q at a caster minion and then the binding obviously travels through and then hits them that way. So it's kind of similar to how Bard Q works. So I'm very excited for her, and I hope you guys try it out. I don't believe she will be S+, but the shield could be that crazy that who knows, maybe she will make it up to S+. We'll have to keep our eyes on it and have a see. So now into the A tier, not too much has changed here either. Liana has moved up 1 spot. She did receive a minor change, an extra 20 damage on her W. May not seem like a lot, but it has made up for some of the effects of the aftershock, and she is still a very good between gold and low plat. She is very good if you want to work your way towards playing something like something a little bit harder like Alistar. She is a very decent engage support for bot lane. Her CC is crazy good still, and yeah, I would totally recommend her if you're wanting to learn to play some tank support, wanting to learn about when to engage, because her aftershock plus the W, then the resistance is scaling. She's pretty safe when you go in, and then if you decide to get out, then most of the time you can walk away with it without being too badly injured. Bard, Zillion, Karma, Braum, they're all champions where they have their place, particularly if you are more one tricky of those. There's a lot of Bard one tricks that like to play Bard, so if you have a lot of experience on those champions, you will be able to do a lot more than what most people would be able to do. They are a lot more skill and like micromanagement champions, making sure that you do the right timing on the Brown wall, for example, to block certain ultimates, being able to use your skill shots on both the Zillion and the Bard are quite important, and being able to know when to use your mantra. So those are slightly more complicated champions to play, but they have their place if you're able to play them a lot. Soraka is a safe-ish pick. The grievous wounds being able to be picked up between multiple people now is a slight issue. However, I've seen it time and time again in solo queue that the ADs or the mid laner they don't pick up a Morello or an execute for a very long time, and then by that point it's too late because Soraka has just been spam hitting people so much during those early stages of the game where the deficit has just been a little bit too much. Sona has received a little buff in lane with her power chords. So I would say that she is definitely in an okay place at A. She's too squishy for the later tiers, and her only real engage is the flash ulti. Doing her ulti without a flash engage is extremely difficult to pull off without being blown up before you even manage to walk into that situation. In my opinion, she has some potential to be higher, but in all honesty, I think because of how her abilities are worked out, they are pretty low mechanical skilled, right? So there isn't much room for her to move forward from A. Her ult has potential for team fights, but as I said, you really need flash to be able to pull it off. Tariq has moved down from the higher tier. This is because of tier nerf. Tier costs more mana. Tier just got nerfed a lot this patch. And in all honesty, I was having a little bit doubts of him. He's having a lot harder time dealing with the poke supports. And there's more poke supports now with Lux being introduced more as a support now. He's going to have more troubles. He still has obviously the great ulti potential and great stun potential, but with the mana issues that he has and that you have to buy tier, in my opinion, there's no way around it, and tier costing more money and you're not getting as much mana from tier. It's a little bit messy. Riot really focused a little bit too much on mid lane mana and kind of forgot about support mana. I believe hopefully they'll revisit it in a couple of patches of time. But Tariq right now, mana-wise, he's having a very difficult time in the laning phase, which is the most important part of solo queue, in my honest opinion. So laning phase can easily tilt you or your allies or your enemies, and it sets up the game and sets out what the game's likely to turn out for after the laning phase. And Tariq not being able to do much during the laning phase is a big warning sign. I'm going to briefly talk about these the B and the C tier. These champions are very rarely played in solo queue. Honestly, these champions have either received dramatic nerfs or haven't been as viable as they thought they could be. They can be a little bit cheesy at times. You can pull it off with some cheese, but honestly, none of these champions, in my opinion, are particularly great for solo queue. So we've got the Tom Kench in the B list. He did get massive nerfs last patch, and honestly, I haven't seen a single Tom Kench game in about 100 since the last patch. He's just not being played at all in Diamond, and I'm expecting the trickle effect to happen lower down. He's just not there anymore. He really is risky to make the play with the 3 stacks and the Q and the consume. And if you get ahead, that's great, but they keep nerfing the tank supports. And as that's happening, and they did target nerfs as well on the Tom Kench as well, and it's just sad to see. I used to love playing Tom Kench, so I'm a little bit sad by that one. Nautilus support isn't as great as I thought I originally was expecting. Now the CC, he's like a tanky Jana, but Jana does a lot of the same things as the Nautilus, but safer, if that makes sense, apart from maybe the engage equivalent on his ulti. The problem with Nautilus is when I was playing him in solo queue, I noticed one main thing, and that was damage issues. I would land everything on an opponent, and in all honesty, because the leveling up the abilities on Nautilus is so bad, the leveling up the abilities on Nautilus, the damage scaling is so bad, that when you've done your all-in, the enemy is still walking away with a comfortable amount of HP, whereas compared to something like Blitzcrank, where the hook alone does way more damage than most Nautilus abilities combined, that's when it's like warning flags and saying, okay, it's great that you've got this hook on an extreme low cooldown, but you are relying so much on your team to follow up there, and then in solo queue that isn't as much of an option as, say, competitive play. So right now, Nautilus, until he receives damage buffs, more damage buffs in future patches, he's staying at B. But as soon as he does receive damage buffs, and if they keep the cooldowns as they are, he will be moved up to A. But he is right now a tank equivalent of Jana, but does less damage than Jana. He's really in an awkward position, in my opinion. The Xerath and the Vel'Koz and the Veigar, those champions are okay to play, but they're very cheesy. Like the Veigar cage, you need to be able to pull that off with some great confidence. The Vel'Koz, you need to be very good, very good at landing skill shots on a consistent basis. If you are playing Vel'Koz or Xerath, for example, in mid lane, you're allowed to miss a few abilities because you have that, you have the levels, you have the mana items that you'll be picking up. Whereas if you miss skill shots on those two champions, you're going to go extremely quickly, and then you're just going to be like a sitting duck, and you won't be able to help out your team much at all. The better of those two, though, if I had to choose, would probably be Xerath slightly because of hard CC. I can't stress hard CC enough. Hard CC in League of Legends is extremely strong compared to like the root snare. The hard CC, the easiness of the Xerath E compared to the Vel'Koz knock up. The knock up, it's very difficult to land compared to the Xerath stun. But if you're very good on those champions, say if you play middle lane a lot and you are like one trick on those two, you'll probably come across some more success. But really right now it's just really cheesy. And then the C tier, we've got the Malzahar. Malzahar hasn't been relevant for a very long time. The only thing that you'll find good with that is his ulti, and honestly, it's not worth it just to play just for your ultimate. Maokai, his ult is okay, but generally all these champions in the C list, I don't think I need to go into too much detail. They are either very cheesy or they're very squishy and don't justify for what they do. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this quick rundown to patch 8.9 for this patch. If you enjoyed the content, thumbs up. I stream on twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. YouTube content in the next few days regarding supports. I think the next support video will be either to do with Blitzcrank, or it'll be a general tip guide on how to try and help you set up for when you get into ranked. Some tips that I haven't actually seen mentioned anywhere. I've been looking around just to make sure. I don't want to make duplicate content, but I've got some unique tips to give you guys as honestly any player going into a solo queue game has to prepare for that. So I'm very excited for that video coming out. But yeah, hopefully you'll have some success this patch. Hopefully you'll give Flux a try, and see you soon.